Search and rescue officers have a secret rule. If you see a staircase in the middle of the woods, run. Tonight, we are going off the map. I have 3 terrifying true stories about things found in the deep wilderness that should not exist. From stairs that lead to nowhere, to a cave that steals your voice, and a fire tower with a list of rules that keeps getting longer. You might want to lock your windows for this one. Let's begin. Story 1. The Staircase in Zone 4. I have been a search and rescue officer for the National Park Service for 12 years. I work in a park that I won't name, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful country. We have snow-capped peaks, thick pine forests that smell like Christmas all year round, and rivers so clear you can count the stones on the bottom. But the thing about the wilderness is that it doesn't care about you. It is vast, it is silent, and it keeps its secrets. Most of my job is pretty standard. We find day hikers who wandered off the trail to take a selfie and got turned around. We find kids who chased a butterfly too far into the woods. Usually, we find them cold, hungry, and embarrassed, but alive. We give them a blanket and a granola bar, and we walk them home. But sometimes we find things that don't make sense. There is a rule among the veterans in my unit. It's not written in the employee handbook. You won't find it on any official memo. But every single one of us knows it. If you are deep in the woods, I mean miles from the nearest road, in the places where the GPS doesn't work and the radio is just static, and you see a staircase, you walk away. You don't touch it. You don't take a picture of it. And you absolutely, under no circumstances, climb it. I always thought it was a joke. Hazing for the rookies. Watch out for the ghost stairs, kid. I laughed it off. Until last November. It was late in the season. The tourists had mostly gone home, and the air had that sharp, metallic taste that means snow is coming. I was on duty at the main station when a call came in from a frantic father. His 6-year-old son, a boy named Lucas, had vanished from their campsite in Zone 4. Zone 4 is what we call the deep green. It's a dense section of old-growth forest that is technically open to the public, but nobody really goes there. There are no marked trails. The trees are so big that 3 men holding hands couldn't reach around them. The canopy is so thick that even at noon, it looks like twilight on the forest floor. He was just right here. The father kept sobbing over the phone. I turned around to grab the tent stakes, and he was gone. He didn't make a sound. He just vanished. We mobilized a team immediately. Me, my partner David, and a rookie named Sarah. We took the ATV as far as the logging road went, and then we hiked. The hike into Zone 4 is brutal. The underbrush is thick, devil's club and blackberry thorns that tear at your uniform. It took us 3 hours to reach the father's campsite. He was a wreck, sitting by a cold fire pit, clutching a small blue teddy bear. He's wearing a red jacket, the father said, his eyes wild. He has light-up sneakers. Please find him. We started the grid search. We moved in a line, 20 feet apart, scanning every bush, every hollow log, every shadow. Lucas, we shouted. Lucas. Our voices sounded flat. The trees in Zone 4 seemed to swallow sound. You yell, and the sound just drops dead 3 feet from your face. We searched for 4 hours. The sun started to dip. The temperature was dropping fast. In these woods, if you spend a night alone without gear, hypothermia will get you before the wolves do. We were getting desperate. Then, my radio crackled. Unit 1. This is Unit 3. It was Sarah, the rookie. Her voice was shaking. I found something. Did you find the boy? I asked, pushing through a thicket of ferns. No, she said. I don't know what this is. You need to see it. I checked my GPS. Sarah was about 400 yards to my west, near a ridge line. Hold your position, Sarah. I'm coming to you. I signaled David, and we both headed towards Sarah's coordinates. The woods got quieter as we moved west. No birds. No squirrels chattering. Just the crunch of our boots on dead needles. When I broke through the trees and saw Sarah, she was standing perfectly still. She wasn't looking at the ground for tracks. She was looking up, and there it was, standing in a small clearing, surrounded by miles of untouched wilderness, was a staircase. It wasn't an old ruin. It wasn't a crumbling stone foundation from a pioneer cabin. It was a pristine, polished wooden staircase. It looked like someone had taken a saw and cut a staircase right out of a wealthy suburban mansion and dropped it into the forest. It had a banister made of smooth, dark cherry wood. The steps were covered in a plush, cream-colored carpet. It was spotlessly clean. There wasn't a single pine needle, leaf, or speck of dirt on that cream carpet. It stood there, freestanding. It didn't lead to a house. It didn't lead to a treehouse. It just rose up into the air, about 12 steps, and then ended abruptly in empty space. "What is that?" Sarah whispered. She looked terrified. "I don't know," I lied. I remembered the rule. If you see a staircase, walk away. "Is it an art installation?" David asked, walking closer. "Some kind of prank?" "It's clean," I said, pointing my flashlight at the carpet. "Look at it. It rained 2 days ago. This carpet is dry. It's perfectly white." "That's impossible. Maybe Lucas is up there," Sarah said. She took a step toward the stairs. "Stop," I ordered. My voice was sharper than I intended. "Don't go near it." "But if he climbed it?" "He didn't climb it," I said. I felt a sickness in my stomach. A primal instinct, deep in my reptile brain, was screaming at me to run. This thing is wrong. It doesn't belong here. I walked around the structure, keeping a wide distance of about 20 feet. From the side, it looked razor thin. It was just wood and carpet. There were no supports holding it up. Physics said it should fall over, but it stood rock solid, rooted to the forest floor. "Lucas!" David shouted again, turning his back to the stairs to scan the woods. And then, we heard it. It came from the top of the stairs. Creak. It was the sound of a heavy footstep on a wooden floorboard. We all spun around. The stairs were empty. There was nothing there but air. Creak. Thump. Another step. It sounded like someone invisible was walking down the stairs, descending from the empty air at the top toward the ground. The sound was heavy, deliberate. Sarah raised her hands to her mouth. "Do you hear that?" "Quiet," I hissed. Thump. 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 The footsteps were coming down. They reached the middle of the staircase. I watched the plush cream carpet. As the invisible foot landed on the 7th step, the carpet depressed. I saw the fabric crush down, forming the perfect imprint of a boot. But there was no boot. "Run," I whispered. "What?" David looked at me. "Run," I screamed. I grabbed Sarah by the arm and shoved her back toward the tree line. We didn't look back. We sprinted. We tore through the brush, ignoring the thorns that slashed our faces. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs felt like lead. We didn't stop until we reached the logging road where we had left the ATV. We sat there on the gravel, gasping for air, the sun setting behind the mountains. "What was that?" Sarah was crying now. "I saw the footprint mark. I saw the carpet move." "We don't talk about it," I said, trying to steady my breathing. "We mark the location as hazardous terrain on the map, and we never go back to that spot." "But the boy," David said. "We have to find Lucas." We went back out the next morning with a larger team and dogs. We searched for 3 days. We never went near the clearing with the stairs again. I steered the team around it. On the 4th day, we found Lucas. He was 5 miles away from where he vanished, in the opposite direction of the stairs. He was sitting on a rock near a creek, playing with a pine cone. He was cold and hungry, but unharmed. When we got him back to the station and warmed him up with hot cocoa, I sat down with him while his parents were signing paperwork with the sheriff. "You're a brave kid, Lucas," I said. "You walked a long way." Lucas looked at me with big, innocent eyes. "I didn't walk," he said. "You didn't? Then how did you get to the creek?" "The big man carried me," he said. I froze. "What big man?" "The man with no face," Lucas said matter-of-factly. "He wears a funny suit. He found me by the tent. He told me to be quiet. He picked me up, and we walked through the trees. He walked really fast." "Did he say anything to you?" I asked, my blood running cold. "He asked if I wanted to go to his house," Lucas said. "He said his house was just up the stairs." He showed me the stairs. They were white and pretty. I stopped breathing. "Did you climb them?" I whispered. Lucas shook his head. No. I told him I wasn't allowed to climb stairs without holding the railing, and the railing was too high for me. So he got mad. He put me down by the water and told me to wait. He said he had to go find someone smaller. Lucas took a sip of his cocoa. Is the big man in trouble? No, I said, my voice trembling. He's not in trouble. But you promised me something, Lucas. If you ever see stairs in the woods again, you run away. Okay, he said. I went back to Zone 4 a week later. I went alone. I know it was stupid. I know it broke every rule. But I had to know. I hiked back to the coordinates where we had seen the staircase. It took me hours. I found the clearing. The stairs were gone. But in the center of the clearing, where the base of the staircase had been, the ground was scorched. A perfect rectangle of black, burnt earth. And lying in the middle of the ash was a single, solitary object. It was a small blue teddy bear, the same one Lucas's father had been holding. The father had never been in the woods with us. He had stayed at the campsite. He had taken the bear home with him. I saw him put it in his car. So how did it get here? I left it there. I turned around and walked out of the woods, and I didn't look back. I put in my transfer request the next morning. I work at a desk now dispatching calls. I don't go into the woods anymore. Not deep. Not where the trees get thick and the silence gets heavy. Because I know what's out there. I know that sometimes doors open in the forest. And sometimes things come out of them. And sometimes they try to take us back in with them. Story 2. The Echo That Didn't Stop. I have hiked the Appalachian Trail for 20 years. I've done the Pacific Crest Trail. I've done the Continental Divide. I am not an amateur. I know the difference between a mountain lion scream and a bobcat. I know the difference between the wind howling and a person screaming. But what I heard in the Mammoth Cave system in Kentucky, I don't have a name for that. It was mid-July. I wasn't there to explore the tourist caves with the lights and the railings. I was there with a small group of spelunkers, cave explorers, mapping a new section of wild cave that had been discovered near the Green River. It was just 3 of us. Me, a guy named Ben who was a geologist, and Sarah, who was an expert in cave biology. Caving is not like hiking. When you are 2 miles underground, squeezed into a tunnel no wider than your shoulders, you realize how small you are. The darkness down there isn't just dark. It's heavy. If your light goes out, you can't see your hand touching your nose. We had been underground for 6 hours. We were exhausted. We found a small cavern, about the size of a bedroom, and decided to take a break. We turned off our main headlamps to save batteries, sitting in the dim glow of a single backup light. It's quiet, Ben whispered. He was right. Usually, caves have sounds. Dripping water, the squeak of bats, the shifting of rocks. But this section was dead silent. Let's do a sound check, Sarah said. It was a standard safety test. 1 person yells, and we listen to how the sound travels to map the size of the tunnels ahead. I stood up. I faced the dark tunnel leading deeper into the earth. Hello, I shouted. The sound blasted out of my throat, harsh and loud. Hello, hello, hello? The echo bounced back. It faded away after a few seconds. Tunnel opens up ahead, I said. Did you hear that delay? It's a big room. We packed up our gear and started crawling again. We moved for another hour. The tunnel got tighter. It was a belly crawl. We had to lay flat on our stomachs and drag ourselves forward with our elbows. It is claustrophobic work. I was in the back. Sarah was in front. Ben was in the middle. Suddenly, Ben stopped. Did you guys say something? He asked. No, Sarah called back. Keep moving. I heard my name, Ben said. I heard someone whisper Ben. It's just the acoustics, I said, trying to stay calm. Your gear probably scraped against the rock. We kept moving. 10 minutes later, I heard it. It came from behind me, from the tunnel we had just come through. Hello? I froze. It was faint, but clear. It was my voice. It sounded exactly like the shout I had made an hour ago during the sound check. Did you hear that? I asked. Hear what? Sarah asked. My echo. It just came back. That's impossible, Ben said. Echoes don't travel for an hour, Mark. Physics doesn't work like that. I shone my light backward down the tunnel. Nothing but empty rock and darkness. Maybe there's another group down here? Maybe they heard me, and they're yelling back. We waited. Silence. We pushed forward, finally popping out into a large cavern. It was massive, with stalactites hanging from the ceiling like stone teeth. We stood up, stretching our aching backs. Then, the sound exploded around us. Hello? It was a scream. But it wasn't a human scream. It was a recording of a scream. It was my voice, my exact tone, my exact pitch, but it was too loud. It was distorted, like a speaker turned up too high. And it came from the ceiling. We all shone our lights up. The ceiling was 50 feet high. There was nothing there. Just wet stone. Who is up there? Ben shouted. A second later, a voice answered from the darkness. Who is up there? But it wasn't an echo. It didn't fade. It was spoken with zero emotion. Flat. Dead. It was Ben's voice, perfectly mimicked. This isn't funny. Ben yelled. Show yourself. Show yourself. The voice repeated instantly. Then, a new sound started. It came from a dark fissure in the corner of the room. Cough. 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 It was Sarah's cough. She had been coughing earlier in the crawl because of the dust. But Sarah wasn't coughing now. She was standing next to me, her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with terror. The coughing sound got closer. It sounded wet. Guttural. We need to leave, Sarah whispered. Now. We ran. We didn't map the room. We scrambled toward the exit tunnel on the other side. As we ran, the cavern filled with noise. It wasn't just voices anymore. It was a chaotic remix of every sound we had made in the last 6 hours. The sound of Velcro tearing. The sound of a water bottle crunching. The sound of our boots on gravel. And underneath it all, a low, rhythmic clicking sound. Click, click, click. We dove into the exit tunnel. It was a tight squeeze. Ben went first, then Sarah, then me. I was the last one out. As I pulled my legs into the tunnel, I looked back into the cavern one last time. I pointed my high-beam flashlight at the fissure where the sounds were coming from. Something was pulling itself out of the crack in the wall. It was pale, translucent, like a cave salamander. It looked soft and wet. It didn't have a shape. It looked like a pile of raw dough sliding over the rocks. But as it moved, it changed. It grew a leg, then an arm. It was trying to form a shape. It was trying to look like us. And where its face should have been, a slit opened up. A mouth. Hello? It screamed at me. I scrambled backward, kicking my legs, pushing myself into the tunnel. Go, go, go. I screamed at Ben and Sarah. We crawled faster than we had ever crawled in our lives. We didn't care about safety. We scraped our knees raw. We banged our heads on the rock. We just moved. Behind us, in the tunnel, the sounds followed. Wait up, guys. Ben's voice. My light is dying. Sarah's voice. I think I'm stuck. My voice. It was trying to confuse us. It was trying to make us stop. Don't listen. I yelled. Just keep moving. We crawled for 2 hours without stopping. The sounds eventually faded, but I could still hear that wet, sliding noise behind us. Slap, slap, slap. It was slow, but it was relentless. When we finally saw the daylight of the cave entrance, I almost cried. We burst out into the warm, humid Kentucky air. We collapsed on the grass, covered in mud and blood. We lay there for 20 minutes, just listening to the birds. Real birds. We never go back, Ben said. He was shaking so bad, he couldn't open his water bottle. We seal the entrance. We tell the rangers it's unstable. We did exactly that. We filed a report saying the ceiling had collapsed. We told them the cave was a death trap. They welded a steel grate over the entrance the next week. But sometimes I wonder about the voice. It wasn't just mimicking us. It was learning. The first time it spoke, it was just a loud echo. By the time we left, it was using full sentences. It was using our names. I live in the city now. I stay away from caves. I stay away from basements. But sometimes, late at night, when my house is quiet, I hear things. Last week, I was brushing my teeth, and I heard my wife call my name from the bedroom. Mark, can you come here? I put down my toothbrush and started walking down the hall. Then I stopped. My wife was out of town. She was visiting her mother in Ohio. I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed bedroom door. "Mark?" The voice called again. It sounded exactly like her. But there was something wrong. It was too flat. Too perfect. "I'm not coming in," I whispered. Silence. Then, from behind the door, a sound I hadn't heard in 5 years. Click, click, click. I grabbed my keys and left the house. I stayed in a hotel for 3 nights. When I came back, the house was empty. But I know it's out there. It learned my voice in the cave. Now it's learning my life. And one day, I'm afraid I'm going to answer it. Story 3. The Watchtower at Blackwood Ridge. I didn't take the job because I wanted adventure. I took it because I wanted to disappear. My life back in Chicago had fallen apart. Divorce, debt, the whole cliché. So when I saw the posting for a fire lookout on the U.S. Forest Service website, it looked like salvation. Job title, Seasonal Fire Watch. Location, Blackwood Ridge, Montana. Pay, $18 an hour. Requirements, must be comfortable with extreme isolation. Extreme isolation. That was an understatement. Blackwood Ridge isn't just remote. It's practically on a different planet. To get there, you drive 4 hours on a paved road, 2 hours on a gravel logging road, and then you hike 6 miles up a goat trail that makes your lungs burn. The tower itself is a 60-foot steel skeleton topped with a 14 by 14 wooden box. That box was my home for 3 months. The ranger who drove me to the trailhead was a guy named Miller. He was old, with skin like leather and eyes that looked like they had seen too many forest fires. He didn't talk much on the drive. He just smoked cheap cigarettes and stared at the tree line. When we got to the trail, he handed me a heavy canvas backpack and a set of keys. "There's food in the pantry," Miller grunted. "Propane tank is full. Radio check is at 0800 every morning. Don't miss it." "Got it," I said, adjusting the pack. Miller hesitated. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a folded piece of yellow notebook paper. It looked old. The creases were worn white. "One more thing," he said. He didn't look at me. He looked at the paper. "This is the protocol list. It's local knowledge. From the guys who worked the tower before you. Read it. Follow it. Is this official Forest Service policy?" I asked, grinning. Miller didn't smile back. "Just read it. And remember rule number 1. It's the only one that really matters." He got in his truck and drove away before I could ask what rule number 1 was. I hiked up the trail. The air got thinner, colder. By the time I climbed the 60 feet of steel stairs and unlocked the trapdoor to the cabin, the sun was setting. The view was incredible. Miles of green velvet forest stretching to the horizon. No lights. No cities. Just wild earth. I unpacked my gear. I made a pot of coffee on the propane stove. I felt peace for the first time in years. Then, I sat down at the small desk by the window and unfolded the yellow paper Miller had given me. The handwriting was jagged, scrawled in black ink. The Blackwood protocols. The crying. If you hear a baby crying at the base of the tower between midnight and 3 a.m., do not look down. Do not open the trapdoor. Put on your noise-canceling headphones and wait until sunrise. There are no babies in these woods. The radio. If the radio turns on by itself and plays static, change the channel immediately. If it plays classical music, cut the power wire. We don't broadcast music. The birds. If you wake up and the railing outside is covered in crows, do not go out on the catwalk. They aren't watching the forest. They are watching you. The light. If you see a lantern light bobbing in the trees to the north, do not signal it. It wants to be seen. The stairs. You will hear footsteps on the metal stairs. This is the metal contracting in the cold. Tell yourself this, even if the footsteps sound wet. The visitor. If a man in a red flannel shirt knocks on the trapdoor asking for water, check his hands. If he is wearing gloves, you can let him in. If his hands are bare and his fingers are too long, lock the deadbolt. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. "Okay, Miller," I whispered to the empty room. "Very funny. Scare the city boy with some campfire ghost stories. I pinned the list to the corkboard above the radio and forgot about it. The first week was heaven. I woke up, drank coffee, scanned the horizon for smoke, read books, and slept. The silence was heavy, but it was a good heavy. On the 8th night, the weirdness started. I was reading a Stephen King novel, stupid choice, I know, by the light of a lantern. It was around 11 p.m. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of boots on the metal stairs. I froze. I was 6 miles from the nearest road. Nobody hikes up here at night. I stood up, walking to the window. I couldn't see the stairs directly from the window, but I could hear the vibration rattling the tower. Clang, clang, clang. It stopped halfway up. I remembered the list. Rule 5, contraction of the metal. It's just the cold, I said aloud. My voice sounded thin in the small room. Just the metal cooling down. But the rhythm was too perfect. 1, 2, 1, 2. Metal doesn't contract in a walking rhythm. I grabbed my flashlight and the heavy mag light I kept for defense. I walked to the trapdoor in the floor. It has a small window in it. I shone the light down through the glass. The stairs were empty. I let out a breath. See? Physics. I went back to bed. But as I was drifting off, I heard it again. Soft this time. Not boots. Hands. Scrape. Scrape. Something was dragging its fingernails along the steel railing of the catwalk outside my door. Slowly. Deliberately. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I radioed Miller for the daily check-in. Unit 1 to base. All clear. No smoke. Copy that. Unit 1, Miller's voice crackled. How was the night? There was a weird tone in his voice. Expectant. Windy, I lied. Noisy. Did you read the list? He asked. Yeah, I read your little joke. Very creative. Silence on the radio. Then, stick to the list, kid. Over. He clicked off. I spent the day angry. I felt like I was being pranked. I started digging through the desk drawers, looking for something to distract me. In the bottom drawer, hidden under a stack of old maps, I found a notebook. It was a logbook, but not the official fire log. This one was a cheap composition notebook. I opened the first page. The date was from 4 years ago. Entry 1, June 4th. My name is David. This is my second season. The isolation is getting to me quicker this time. I saw the light in the north woods again. It's getting closer. I flipped forward a few pages. Entry 12, July 10th. The birds are back. Hundreds of them. They just sit on the railing and stare. They don't blink. I threw a boot at them, and they didn't move. I think they're waiting for me to make a mistake. I flipped to the end of the notebook. The handwriting had changed. It was shaky, erratic. The letters were pressed so hard into the paper they had torn through. Entry 45, August 2nd. I looked. God help me, I looked. The crying was so loud. It sounded like my daughter. It sounded exactly like Emily. I forgot the rule. I opened the hatch. I looked down. The entry ended there. The rest of the page was blank. I closed the book. My hands were sweating. I looked at the yellow paper pinned to the wall. Rule 1. If you hear a baby crying, do not look down. David, I whispered. What happened to you? That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder shook the tower like a rattle. The wind screamed through the guy wires holding the structure in place. At 2 a.m., the rain stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. And then, it started. Wah! A cry. Soft, high-pitched. I sat up in my bunk, my heart hammering against my ribs. Wah! Mama! It wasn't just a cry. It was a word. I scrambled out of bed. I grabbed the noise-canceling headphones Miller had left on the hook. I put them on. But the sound cut right through them. It wasn't just sound waves. It felt like the sound was vibrating inside my skull. Daddy, Daddy, please. My blood turned to ice. I don't have a daughter. But the voice, it sounded like my little niece, Sarah. It sounded exactly like her. Daddy, it's cold. My leg hurts. Daddy, help me. It was coming from the bottom of the tower. 60 feet down. I stood in the middle of the room, hands over my ears, shaking. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to go help. It's a child. A child is hurt in the dark. You have to help. I took a step toward the trapdoor. No. Rule number 1. Daddy, the wolves are coming. Please, open the door. The voice changed. It wasn't my niece anymore. It was my ex-wife. Mark? Mark, are you up there? I crashed the car. Mark, please, I'm bleeding. Stop it. I yelled. You're not real. Mark. The voice shrieked. It wasn't human anymore. It was a distorted, electronic screech that sounded like metal tearing. Then, the climbing started. Boom, boom, boom. Whatever it wasn't walking up the stairs anymore. It was leaping. It was clearing 5 steps at a time. The whole tower swayed. I grabbed the heavy iron deadbolt on the trapdoor and slammed it home. I dragged the desk over the trapdoor. I piled my heavy backpack on top of it. Boom. It was on the catwalk, right outside the door. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Long, slow scratches on the wooden door. Mark, the voice whispered. It was right against the crack of the door. I have the list, Mark. I know you're reading it. I backed away into the farthest corner of the room, clutching the mag light. Go away, I screamed. Let me in, the voice whispered. It's cold. My fingers are so long, Mark. They're so cold. Rule 6. Check his hands. If his fingers are too long. The doorknob turned. I watched in horror as the heavy brass knob slowly rotated. It clicked against the lock. Then it rattled. Viciously. Clack, 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 clack. The door shook in the frame. The desk I had piled on top of it bounced. Open it. The voice roared. It sounded like a bear roaring, deep and guttural, but with human words. I closed my eyes. I started reciting the list in my head. There are no babies. There are no visitors. It's just the metal. It's just the metal. I sat there for 4 hours. The scratching continued. The whispering continued. It told me things about myself that nobody knows. It told me about the debt. It told me about the night I left my wife. It told me how I was going to die. And then, just as the first gray light of dawn touched the window, it stopped. One final scratch. Then silence. I didn't move until the sun was fully up. I crawled to the window and looked out. The catwalk was empty. I moved the desk. I unlocked the deadbolt. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn the latch. I opened the trapdoor and looked down the stairs. Nothing. Just 60 feet of steel and the green forest below. But then I saw it. On the outside of the heavy wooden door, carved deep into the wood, were scratches. But they weren't random. They were words. 3 words, carved over and over again into the solid oak. I see you. I see you. I see you. And near the handle, there was a smear. It looked like mud, but it smelled like rot. Like old meat left in the sun. I packed my bag in 5 minutes. I left the food. I left the books. I left the radio. I ran down those stairs so fast I almost tripped and fell to my death. I didn't care. I hiked the 6 miles back to my car in record time. I didn't look at the trees. I didn't look at the dark patches of shadow. I drove straight to the ranger station. I threw the keys on Miller's desk. He didn't look surprised. He just looked up from his paperwork and sighed. You made it longer than the last guy, he said. What is that thing? I demanded. What is up there? Miller took a drag of his cigarette. Blackwood Ridge is old, kid. Older than the park. Older than the country. Some places, they have their own rules. We just try to write them down. He opened his drawer and pulled out a fresh sheet of yellow notebook paper. He slid it across the desk. You forgot to sign out, he said. I looked at the paper. It was the payroll form. I signed it with a shaking hand. One more thing, Miller said as I turned to leave. Did you leave the list? What? The protocol list. Did you leave it in the cabin? No, I said, patting my pocket. I think I put it in my weight. I checked my pockets. Empty. I checked my backpack. Empty. I must have left it on the desk, I said. Miller's face went pale. Genuine fear flashed in his eyes for the first time. You left it? He whispered. Yeah. What? Miller stood up and walked to the window, looking up toward the distant ridge line. Because, he said softly, if you leave the list, it knows that you know the rules. And if it knows that you know the rules. He turned back to me. It knows you broke rule number 7. I froze. There were only 6 rules. Miller shook his head slowly. No, son. There are 7. Rule number 7 is at the bottom, written in invisible ink. You have to hold it up to the lantern to see it. What? What is Rule 7? Miller looked at me with pity. Rule 7. Never leave the rules behind. If you do, you give it permission to follow you home. I drove back to Chicago that day. I moved into a new apartment on the 30th floor. I thought I was safe. But last night, I woke up at 3 a.m. There was a sound coming from the balcony. Scrape, scrape, scrape. And this morning, when I went to get the mail, I found a piece of yellow notebook paper in my mailbox. It was blank, but when I held it up to the light, there was one sentence written in jagged, black scrawl. Rule 8. I found you. So, I have to ask, if you found that staircase in the woods, would you climb it? Let me know in the comments below. If you survive these stories, hit the like button. It helps the channel more than you know. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. I have many more nightmares to share. Until next time, stay out of the woods.